Hello and welcome to Take 6. I am streaming executive producer Thomas Mates, filling in for Julie Broughton. She is out on assignment today, but she will join us again coming up on News 6 at 4 with your forecast. Today, we are going to be looking at some schemes that the IRS is warning people about as they get ready to file their taxes this tax season. There's some people out there who may be making promises they just can't keep, and it could fall back on you before it falls back on them. So you'll want to watch that. We'll have that with investigator Lewis Bolden coming up in just a moment. Then later on, we're going to be talking to UCF history professor and News 6 political analyst Jim Clark. It today marks 2 weeks since the inauguration of President Donald Trump, and it has been a very busy 2 weeks for the new administration. So we're going to be taking a look at the big events from that and what's coming of that and what that will mean for you, especially as new tariffs have been announced for Canada, and new developments just happened this afternoon with the tariffs announced for Mexico. So we'll have all that information coming up for you in just a moment. But first, we got to check on the weather, excuse me. And we'll be speaking with News 6 meteorologist David Nazario. But first, I want to show you this. This is a look at Daytona Beach. It is still socked in with fog. All morning, we saw fog all across Central Florida. You may have noticed it on your morning commute, made seeing a little difficult. Some areas have cleared up beforehand by now, but Daytona Beach and the coast, we can take a look at Brevard County as well quickly, is also still somewhat up. Nope, Brevard County seems to be cleared up, but Daytona Beach remains socked in. So we are going to talk with News 6 digital meteorologist David Nazario with all the info. The fog today was thick and is still pretty thick over in there, Daytona Beach. It's going to be sticking around for another couple days from what I understand, right, David?
Yep, we'll be in the middle of a John Carpenter / Stephen King film for at least another day or two. It looks like tomorrow morning we're going to be just as socked in because we have a stationary boundary hanging out over Central Florida. But then by Wednesday, during the afternoon time frame, once we get a little bit of that residual stuff to burn off early morning, from Wednesday on, we should be getting a lot better in terms of our early morning visibility.
Well, that's good to hear. But so with the fog is going to be clearing out, but we are still going to be dealing with the warm up that's been coming. We've been at this in the 70s or lower for quite a while now, but we're back in the 80s now, and it's just going to keep around that temperature, maybe even a little warmer.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The warming trend is going to continue, and that's kind of why it is the fog is going to be going away. And in fact, we'll go ahead and rock right into it. Let's take a look at the visibility right now. I'll pull that up for you all so you can see. We do still have a couple of spots out there. New Smyrna just to the immediate south of Daytona Beach, only looking at 2 statute miles of visibility thanks to that coastal fog. And it looks like Leesburg still down to about a mile of visibility, in Orlando getting closer to that unrestricted point, but still have some lingering fog out there, which is a little unusual. Goes to show how dense it was earlier this morning and how calm our wind flow is across the peninsula. Some of that fog and very low-hanging stratus able to stick with us even as we get into the early portions of today's afternoon hours. So with that being said, let's get into some of the weather headlines. I'd love to pull this up. The next big thing, I know it says hot. Now, bear with me. It's not necessarily going to be hot for Florida standard, but for wintertime, especially after Phil himself seeing his shadow yesterday, forecasting an extended bit of the winter season, it's going to be warm, a little unusually warm for us here in Florida, as what's called a negative Pacific North American oscillation builds in, a big old ridge of high pressure driving warmth through our area. So for today and tomorrow, the fog is going to stick around with warming occurring consistently in the afternoons. By Wednesday and forward, as I mentioned previously, we should start to see the fog clear as high pressure settles in directly overhead. And then by the weekend, believe it or not, we're still going to be warming, with some indications in our early model data showing by Monday, Tuesday of next week, we might see areas of South Central Florida, Polk, Osceola, maybe getting into Brevard, parts of Southern Orange County, trying to get towards that 85, 86 degree threshold, which for early February is definitely on the warm side. I'll take you through, before we get into the temperatures and the overall prevailing pattern for Central Florida, we'll go quickly through the visibility. So this is right now, for courtesy of our in-house model. You can see up in Palm Coast, Daytona Beach, New Smyrna Beach, the model is still showing some of that coastal fog hanging out before we finally go fully unrestricted by the afternoon hours. And then overnight, Monday into Tuesday morning, notice how that radiational fog builds right back in. So as we're starting the day tomorrow, just before sunrise, a lot of us going to be very badly socked in. So I would definitely recommend being very careful when you set foot out the door tomorrow morning, whether you're headed to the gym, running early morning errands, getting the kids off to school, even the bus drivers out there and the local commuters, the taxi, Uber drivers, Lyft, you name it, all of our commercial folks, definitely be careful, maintain your awareness as you're on the streets. And then if I fast forward us through to Wednesday morning, notice now that as that high pressure builds in and we start to see some of that fog burning off, notice we don't get nearly as much of the fog. Some of it's still hanging out through Brevard, Orange, maybe getting into a bit of Seminole and Osceola County, but in terms of overall coverage or expansiveness, we're not seeing nearly as much. And then obviously by Thursday morning, we are pretty much good to go with unrestricted visibility back in the picture. I'll go ahead and pop myself back up because now as the fog bleeds out over the next 24 to 48 hours, this is what we're going to have to be preparing for the foreseeable future. This is Climate Prediction Center's temperature outlook for the next 30 days, not the next 2 weeks, not for a small sliver of time like some of the graphics we pulled up before, but for the next 30 days. A lot of us here at the Pinpoint Weather Center and over at Climate Prediction Center are certain that winter just might be over for us in Central Florida, and that's a result of this zonal jet pattern here. I won't take up too much of your time. I'll just go ahead and draw in exactly what's going on. If you notice, from about the Pac Northwest, Northern California, all the way up into the Northeast United States through the lower Great Lakes, our jet stream is flowing very uniformly, very west to east. And as a result, anybody to the south, where my little arrow is, us included down here in the southeast, we're going to be in the warm sector of this jet stream, allowing all that subtropical air, that maritime tropical air from the Caribbean, the Bahamas, the Florida Straits, and the Eastern Gulf to boil itself up into the peninsula of Florida and then for our neighbors up towards the northeast. And that west to east jet flow is going to be sticking around for the foreseeable future. I'll show you here, looking at our future radar, our future cast radar, courtesy of the latest European model. If you watch down over Florida particularly, and in fact, I'll zoom us on in so you guys can get a better idea, a better feel. This was the same graphic I used for my morning weather show. In this case, I'll zoom us down in for the sake of just Central Florida. If you watch, as we go through Monday and Tuesday, you'll notice something very interesting. So right here, I'll stop the clock and quickly doodle in. This is Tuesday night into Wednesday at midnight. Notice how we have winds coming out of the north through Jacksonville into Orlando. Near Miami, however, up into about Osceola County, we have winds out of the south. And then on either side of that, you can see the winds diverging off towards the southwest. And then on the opposite side, down towards the southeast, that's that stationary front. We have that point of convergence and that sinking motion, very, I guess you can say, negligible air mass over top of us. I'm kind of forgetting the word to use right now, but it's a stagnant air mass, not really doing anything. But then as we move forward through time, Wednesday into Thursday, notice what happens. Bam, everything shifts out of the east, and that's exactly why from Wednesday and on through to the weekend, we're not looking at any issues with fog or any kind of visibility concerns of the magnitude we've seen today and what we're expecting tonight. And another key factor here is as high pressure established itself over the western Atlantic, note that we have nothing but red arrows surging over our viewing area, and that's why through the rest of this first week of February into the weekend and even the following week as we approach Valentine's Day, we're just going to continue to slowly but surely warm. So we're not looking at anything in terms of significant weather activity. We're not looking at anything in terms of very bad wintry weather. In fact, as you see here with our forecast highs for the day today and tomorrow, and I pulled this up because it really helps to communicate the big picture. We're just going to continue to steadily warm. Look at Gainesville, 77 today, 79 by tomorrow. Palm Coast, Daytona Beach, New Smyrna Beach, from 71, maybe 72 up to 77 by tomorrow afternoon. Here in Orlando, we're starting the day today in the low 60s, warming to about 80 degrees. Tomorrow up to 82. Same thing with our friends down in Kissimmee and Lakeland, warming up to 81 today, up to 83 tomorrow. So that warming trend is going to continue. Here's an extended look at your pinpoint accurate forecast for the next 7 days. And if you work west to east, kind of like the jet is doing right now. Starting today, we're looking at mostly clear skies despite the fog, 80 degrees, warming to 82. And then by the weekend, we're almost into those mid-80 degree marks for your Saturday and Sunday. So nothing breaking in terms of weather headlines. However, we are going to stay in the warmth, at least for the first half of the month of February.
Yeah, I gotta say, I'm not ready for the 70s to go away just yet. Personally, I know I'm in the minority here in Florida, but like those 70s were pretty nice as far as I'm concerned.
No, I definitely agree. And don't get me wrong, we're going to be warming consistently for now, but as I said during the morning weather update, I'm calling it cold air leakage from up north. We're not going to get any big blasts, but we will every now and again try to return to the low to mid 70s. We won't stay consistently in the 80s, thankfully.
Thank goodness for that. Yeah, it's pretty unusual for the jet stream to be so uniform this time of year. We usually see those big dips, and that's what drags that cold air down into our area. I know when I was living up north, that's when we'd hear the words like polar vortex and things like that, when we got those big dips in the jet stream.
Yep, exactly. And that's kind of what we were alluding to last week during some of our morning briefs and as well as over on the broadcast side. After such a big event towards the end of January, the atmosphere kind of goes dormant. It's got to reset after such an onslaught of just rough weather for everybody in the central and eastern U.S. So now we're in that lull. So I'd imagine by Valentine's Day and the second half of February, Mother Nature will probably try to throw a curveball or two in our direction. So
Got it.
we got to
Well.
enjoy the mild conditions and the warmth for a little while.
Well, happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Exactly.
All right.
Courtesy of Mother Nature.
Yeah, exactly. All right, David, thank you so much for your time and your expertise. I really appreciate it.
Of course, Thomas. Have a great rest of your day, man.
You as well. All right, and now we are going to take a look at an investigation by our own Lewis Bolden. As you probably are aware, it is tax season, and when tax season is happening, those returns they make a kind of a nice target for schemers out there looking to bilk you out of your funds, your tax return, and possibly put you in a very actionable position. So to find out more about it and how you can protect you and your money, we're joined now by News 6 investigator Lewis Bolden. Lewis, how you doing today?
I'm great, Thomas. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. So I was watching your story earlier. There are people out there who are making promises they can't keep, and if they do keep, it could then get you in trouble down the line with Uncle Sam.
That's true, it could. So a while back, we sat down with the IRS commissioner to talk about the Dirty Dozen. And the Dirty Dozen is a list that the IRS puts out every year of the most prevalent tax schemes. And so today we're shining the light on what they call ghost preparers. Take a look. A ghost preparer is someone who prepares a tax return for you but isn't willing to sign it or include information to identify themselves. The former IRS commissioner sat down with News 6 and says it could end up costing you. How prevalent is this during tax season?
It's very prevalent during tax season.
Former IRS Commissioner Danny Werfel says taxpayer beware. You can tell it's tax time by all the signs, even on street corners. But be wary of anyone promising you a large return on the front end.
Any guarantee of a certain credit amount or a certain amount of money is a sure sign that this may be an illegitimate preparation service.
Anyone being paid to prepare or assist in preparing your tax return is required by law to have a Preparer Tax Identification Number, or PTIN. It should go on the second page of the 1040 in the Paid Preparer section. Ask for it beforehand, and you can verify it at irs.gov. Werfel says that promise of a large refund could be built on the preparer claiming fake or inflated business losses and itemized deductions. Keep in mind the average return in 2024 was $3,138.
They will change the bank routing number on your return and have that refund directed to them rather than you. So the issue with ghost preparers is to avoid them.
You could also get free help from IRS certified volunteers. If you make $67,000 a year or less, if you have a disability, need language support, or you're over 60. We'll put a link with more information with this story on clickorlando.com. Remember, don't fall for the scheme, don't get ripped off, but if you do, email me at lbolden@wkmg.com. Getting results, I'm Lewis Bolden, News 6. And another tip from the IRS is never pre-sign your return. A lot of times ghost preparers will say we'll have it 3/4 of the way filled out, and they'll have you go ahead and sign it, and then they fill out the rest of it. That is a big red flag. Never pre-sign it. Make sure it's all the way filled out if somebody else is preparing it for you. Because you heard the commissioner say that ghost preparers have been known to, instead of routing your return to your bank account, they route it to their bank account. So you definitely want to be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, this sounds a bit like a classic case of if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
You're exactly right. You know, I always wonder too, you know how you see all of those signs on the corners, on the street corners
Yeah.
saying $10,000 return? I always wondered, like, how can they guarantee that without knowing your situation? And the answer is they
They
can't
can't. No.
without knowing your financial situation. So anytime somebody tells you, hey, I can get you a $10,000 return, I can get you there is no way to know that in advance.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my wife, she is mostly does freelance work, and so we often have to use a tax preparer, but we really had to like do our due diligence and vet these people and make sure. And I actually didn't even know about the ID number to look out for. I thought that's a very valuable piece of information.
Yep, the PTIN, and you can look them up on irs.gov and verify it. And anybody who, you know, gives you a problem giving you that number, that is a major red flag.
Yeah, and the other thing I thought that was good to point out is that sometimes they will get you the money that they promise. We're about there, but it's usually through some fraudulent or mischievous, maybe we'll say, means
Yeah.
to sort of pad the bill a little bit for you. But I think the important thing for people to remember is it's again, if it's too good to be true, it's Uncle Sam's money and he always gets his.
That's right. That's right. He is always going to get his. But yeah, just keep that in mind. Those are definitely things to keep in mind. With those ghost preparers, check that PTIN for sure.
Yes, absolutely. All right, Lewis, thank you so much. I know we have more on your story at clickorlando.com, along with links to the IRS's website to check those ID numbers and make sure that you're not getting ripped off. But of course, if you are, reach out to Lewis Bolden, and he'll try and set the record straight. And Lewis, one more time, your email so people can reach out to you if they need to.
It is LBOLDEN at WKMG.com.
All right. Thank you so much, Lewis. I appreciate your time. And hopefully if this helps one person protect their cash, we'll be happy.
Exactly. That's the point of these stories.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Lewis. And we'll see you coming up on 4:30, right?
Yep.
All right. Excellent. We'll see you then. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
All right, and we are going to take a quick break right now. When we come back, we're going to be talking with UCF history professor and News 6 political analyst Jim Clark. We're going to be looking back at the major developments that have come out of President Trump's first 2 weeks in office. It has been an eventful 2 weeks for any president, for certain, and certainly for President Trump. We'll have that coming up in about 2 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back to Take 6. The time now is 12:49, almost 12:50. I'm streaming executive producer Thomas Mates, filling in for Julie Broughton. She's out on assignment, but she'll be back for News 6 at 4 with your forecast. Right now, we are going to be talking with UCF history professor and News 6 political analyst Jim Clark. Jim, we are taking a look back. Today marks 2 weeks since the start of the latest Trump presidency, and what a 2 weeks it has been.
Yeah, it's hard to start. Do you have a couple hours in terms of everything that's happened over the last 2 weeks? It's been a real roller coaster and initiatives on 20 or 30 fronts. We probably have not seen anything like this since 1933, Franklin Roosevelt and the New Deal.
Yeah, and to that point, Donald Trump is, for whatever you think about the promises, he is attempting to deliver on all of his campaign promises, particularly with tariffs and the mass deportations that he is said that he would be carrying out.
Yeah, he has started the deportations. The tariffs, as you know, Tom, are kind of murky at the moment. He announced that starting tomorrow, there would be large tariffs against Mexico and Canada. And then Mexico apparently made a gesture. They said they'd send 10,000 Mexican soldiers to the border. And so he has delayed those. He is supposed to talk to the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, later today. So who knows what's going to happen there. So it's tough to say whether this is really going to happen or if it's a negotiating point or exactly where we're going to end up.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know insofar as the Canadian side of things, some provinces in Canada have already started to remove American goods from shelves in liquor stores, especially state-run liquor stores. They've removed American liquors and put up signs that say "Buy Canadian." So it feels a little bit more, at least from that perspective, like Canada's getting ready to dig in their heels. But to your point, that's a bit speculative at this point. We don't know what's going to happen between him and Trudeau.
Yeah, Trudeau could make some sort of a gesture and it would be enough to postpone or call them off. I do not believe that anybody wants this trade war with Canada. The Trump administration, in fact, was surprised when Trudeau called it a trade war, which is, of course, really what it is. And if you look carefully, the tariffs that Canada is putting on are aimed at red states, states that voted for President Trump in the last election. We're not going to feel much of this here in Florida unless you're going to buy a car or a washer dryer or a few other things in the next few months.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You had pointed out that Mexico had made a gesture of sending troops to the U.S.-Mexico border to kind of bolster immigration initiatives that the president has been pursuing, and that was kind of at least an opening salvo in negotiations. If you go back to Donald Trump's famous book, The Art of the Deal, he talks about take an extreme position right off the top to force negotiations. It seems that these tariffs are at least the start of those negotiations from his perspective.
Yeah, the interesting part is that Canada does not seem for the moment inclined to go along with this approach. And they have responded quickly and forcefully, and it would hurt the American automobile industry. It would hurt farmers in the Midwest, and it would hurt power users in the Northeast. We get an amazing amount of our fuel from Canada, and power is generated in Canada going into the United States. So this could have some serious ramifications for millions of Americans.
And this isn't the first time that President Trump has made a push towards our neighbors to the north and the south. During his first administration, he called for the renegotiation of NAFTA, which those negotiations opened in a sort of a similar pressure campaign. Can you like just give us a little bit of a history lesson on that?
Yeah, we got tariffs raised. For example, washing machines cost more than they should ordinarily because of tariffs. People, first of all, people assume countries pay tariffs. They do not. Canada, the government of Canada is not going to pay any tariffs, nor is the government of China or Mexico. People pay tariffs and it's the recipients. So it would be Americans. This is kind of a tax. We paid $80 billion last year in tariffs, and it went to the US Treasury. So it's going to be fascinating to see who gets hurt in this and if somebody backs down in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be something we'll all be watching as it's going to affect many people's bottom lines. One other thing I wanted to talk about since we're talking about the Trump administration, one new thing that he's brought into this administration is the DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. Yes, that's what it is. And we're seeing the first big move from that department headed by Elon Musk today with the calls to end the USAID department.
Yeah. And of course, you're going to upset some of our allies there that get US aid, especially humanitarian aid, which is a huge thing in places like Gaza currently. So I have a feeling a lot of nations are on the phone to Secretary of State Rubio saying, "Hey, what's going on here?" And so it's going to be interesting to see if this stands or if there's enough pressure on the Trump administration to back off of this position.
And the one thing I find interesting about that is just you often hear from the Republican side of the aisle is that they want to put a stop to people like bureaucrats or judges, unelected officials, from implementing policy and policy changes. But this seems to be kind of an example of that.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see if Congress starts to push back. Uh, in the case of U.S. aid, this is money that Congress has appropriated. They said, spend this money here. And now the administration is saying, no, we are not going to spend that money there. So ordinarily, Congress would say, wait a minute, you're usurping our powers. And it'll be interesting to see if Congress says anything.
Yes, constitutionally, the Congress has the power of the purse. They have the power to appropriate funds as they see fit, and then it is up to the executive branch to administer those funds, as I understand it. But the Trump administration is saying, no, we're not even going to do that much. This was something that came up last week during the freeze of government aid and grants that was controversial and caused confusion for many across the country.
Yeah, there have been a lot of false starts here, and people taking it upon themselves to take down websites, government websites, because of possible reaction by Musk or the president. And so a lot of people are kind of flying blind here. They don't know exactly what to do or what will incur Elon Musk's furor.
And the Musk aside, this was something we saw a lot during the first Trump administration where things could be a little, happen quickly and that the government agencies would have to adjust based on these moves from the Trump administration. So it seems like we're seeing a lot of the repeat of President Trump's administering of the wheels and levers of government.
Yeah, and in the first administration, we saw another Trump characteristic, which is he either gets tired or bored or angry with people fairly quickly. And if you'll remember in the first Trump administration, a whole bunch of the people like Steve Bannon left the White House. His first Secretary of State was pushed out. So it's going to be interesting to see if the president keeps people like Elon Musk in these positions and keeps this initiative going.
Yes. Well, like we said, it has been a very busy 2 weeks for the Trump administration, and I can't imagine it's going to be slowing down anytime soon. We're still within that first 100 days, which is usually a big benchmark for new administrations. So we can probably expect the hits to keep on coming, as it were. Yeah. But in the meantime, Jim, I appreciate your expertise and I appreciate you breaking all this down for us. It can be difficult for even us, the politicos of the media to keep up with all the happenings and goings on. But we appreciate all of your insight.
Great. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you so much. All right, Jim, we'll talk to you soon. All right, and with that, we are going to end Take 6 for today. It is just after 1 o'clock, so it's running a little bit late for us. So we appreciate all of you watching. Please tune in for News 6 at 4. Again, Julie Broughton will be back with your forecast, and of course, we'll have all your news of the day. Thank you so much, and have a pleasant day.